Hey, sports fans, this is Robert with WTP Sports Dudes here live to talk a little bit about the college football playoffs that took place over this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So now there were eight. So now we got eight teams left in the college football playoffs. Let's talk about what we saw out of these teams this past weekend. On Friday, of course, we had the game between Alabama and Oklahoma, which was probably the best game of the weekend. We really got to see two really pretty evenly matched teams who play pretty solid defense. Oklahoma, I believe, has the better of the two teams defensively, and then two sort of solid offenses. You didn't have really much of a run game from either one of them two teams, but they do have both have pretty decent quarterbacks who can make some plays with their arm and with their legs from time to time. But let's get into some of the questions that we have from some of the people in the chat in terms of this weekend's action. The first game we want to talk about, of course, is the game on Friday between Oklahoma and Alabama. Our man Mossberg of Level Up Sports 10 wants to know what are your thoughts on Friday's game between Alabama and Oklahoma? Bama wins 34-24. Man, that game was really, really, really interesting because you see Oklahoma come out on fire, go up 17 to nothing at home. You see them up like that, and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, Alabama does not have a run game. And sometimes Ty Simpson can be a little sketchy. He hasn't played really well in the last month, and you're thinking, oh man, this thing is over. I'm quite sure many of the people out there who are the exception of Alabama fans probably felt like this thing is over. There's no way they're getting back in it. And then you've seen some things start to happen in Alabama's favor. And that's how that game went. And it just didn't fare out well for Oklahoma. After the first quarter and a half, things just really turned Alabama's way, and they were able to get this win. I really thought that this was going to be a low scoring game because without a run game, you really think that a team is going to have some trouble scoring a lot of points because it's going to be one of those situations where it's going to be a lot of punts in this game because you can't move the chains with your run game. And you know that if you're one dimensional, a team can sort of start taking away the pass game from you. And this game, they scored 34 and 24 points. I think my prediction was 17-13 in favor of Oklahoma. I thought Oklahoma would win this game at home simply because it was at home. But I really felt like these two teams were pretty evenly matched in this matchup. But Oklahoma took the L in this one. Our man Parlay Poe wants to know, was there a key moment in the game when Bama was down 17 nothing that you thought maybe Bama could get back in it? I really felt like Alabama was up against it when they went down 17 to nothing. But then they are able to get, I have no idea what the punter for Oklahoma was doing, bro. Good snap. You drop the ball, you get it back, you just lay it down on the ground, basically, like, what the heck is going on? And so from that point, you see Oklahoma's defense play some good defense because they held them to a field goal right there. So I felt like that made me think, okay, well, Alabama's back in it. It's not quite halftime yet. They were able to get 10 points on the board at that point, and they're back in this thing. They're not down 17 to nothing anymore. But then John Mateer gets the ball back, and he has an opportunity to make something happen, right? Third, pretty long, but he could run and get the first down on this series. but he decides to throw it to a wide open wide receiver who drops the ball. That hurt. So that punt, that muck punt snap, or whatever you want to call it, because I have no idea what that punter was doing. John Mateer not completing that pass. That wide receiver, you got to make that catch. Because now, momentum is already shifted. So it's already on Oklahoma's side. I think if he would have just ran and got that first down, maybe they could have stopped that bleeding. But they did not get it. And then they get the ball back. And he turns around and throws a pick six, which you saw John Mateer many times this season get a little bit erratic, especially after the thumb injury, to where he was just not able to get his feet set sometimes. Sometimes his footwork is a little erratic, and he sort of just throws the ball up. And then, like against Texas, he threw three interceptions. Two of them were really on some really, really erratic throws. And he did that again against Alabama, and they were able to get a pick six, which really, really shifted the momentum in that game. And after that, Oklahoma really didn't have any chance to get that momentum back, because at that point, Ty Simpson had found his groove. His footwork was always solid in the game, even though Oklahoma was able to get some pressure on him early in the game and keep him a little bit off balance. But he just stayed poised and he stayed under control, and he was able to really pass the ball really well after that first quarter and a half, and they were able to make some things happen. Old Texas Tech man 9144. I'm going to get to your statement down there in a little bit when I get to talking about Oregon. So I'll talk to you about that in a little bit. But if you got anything you want to talk about Oklahoma and Alabama right now, I'll address that, and then I'm gonna go on to the Texas A&M and Miami game, and then I'll get into Oregon and the other game between Ole Miss and Tulane. But thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support. Those two things really let me know that, man, Alabama has a chance to really win this game, because they did not run the ball well at all. At all. But Ty Simpson was able to make some plays with his legs. They never got to the point where they got erratic. Their defense picked it up after that first quarter and a half. They played really well. They were able to get a lot of pressure on John Mateer. They were able to start stopping the running game, because in the first quarter and a half, Oklahoma was able to run the football. But adjustments were made defensively by Alabama, and they were able to start to slow down some of that Oklahoma offense, to where Oklahoma only got one more score in that game, a score that they really needed, because they needed to get back in this game, and they were able to get 24 points on that drive that cut the score to 27-24. But Alabama was able to go right back down the field and score again and extend the lead. And they never looked back after that point. Our man SEC Sean wants to know, how do you see Bama and the Indiana matchup? Man, this is it's going to really be tough for Alabama if they cannot establish any type of run game. I think there was one or two plays in this game where they used Ty Simpson's legs. They may be forced to do that a little bit more against Indiana. I mean, at this point, you're down to the final 8 teams. You got to do everything you can to advance. I think they might need to use Ty Simpson's legs maybe a little bit more to keep the Indiana defense off balance. But they got a good wide receiver core. Even though Ryan Williams did not catch a lot of balls in this game against Oklahoma, in fact, he wasn't even on the field a whole lot in that game. That true freshman was out there, number 17, who scored that first touchdown for them. He was out there a lot more than we saw Ryan Williams. I don't know if Ryan Williams was dealing with an injury of some sort or not, but he wasn't out there on the field a whole lot. but they're going to have to find a way to get some semblance of a run game if they're going to be able to compete with this Indiana team, because this Indiana team is not going to make the mistakes that Oklahoma made. They are fundamentally sound. They're not a team that's going to make a whole lot of mistakes. They're not going to get a whole bunch of penalties. They're not going to do those things to hurt themselves. They're going to play really good, solid, fundamental football, and they're going to be where they need to be, and they're going to make the plays that they need to make. They're not poor tacklers. They're not people. They're not players who are going to be jumping off sides. They're not going to be getting personal foul penalties. They're not going to do any of those things. So Alabama's going to really have to establish the run, and their wide receivers are going to be able to have to create some type of separation. And I think they got a weapon in Bernard that they need to use maybe a little bit more often that we haven't seen them do in a while. My man Doug said Mateer might be a slot receiver in the NFL. Yeah, he might have to go do something other than play quarterback. That's for sure. I think now that we've seen Mator for a whole entire season in a much more competitive league, we're starting to see that maybe his talent is at some other position. I don't think he can go to the NFL and play at the quarterback position. His footwork is a little bit erratic. I know he's been with that offensive coordinator for a few years, but I expected him to be better after they started playing some major opponents than what he has been this season. So he's probably going to have to be looking at another position. But of course, they're going to keep him at quarterback next year. Maybe they can fix some of his quirks and some of his footwork, because sometimes it can get a little erratic. Oh, Texas Tech man, 91-44. Oklahoma has a habit of choking in big games. Yeah, under Brent Venables, they've had a track record of folding under big games, even under Lincoln Riley. Now, under Bob Stoops, they've lost a couple of big games, but they won some national championships under Stoops as well. But yeah, you're right about that. If you look at recent history, Oklahoma has had a habit of choking in some big games for sure. Let's turn our attentions to the early game yesterday between Texas A&M and Miami. Our man Post Game of the Post Game 86 podcast says it was a defensive battle in the Miami and A&M game. What are your thoughts on Miami's 10-3 win over Texas A&M? To be totally honest with you, man, I'm like, this is one of those games where neither one of these teams are able to really muster up a whole lot of offense. They had some moments where they were able to move the ball and get some first downs, but of course, the wind was very, very troublesome in this game. We saw kickers miss, I think, maybe 5 or 6 field goals in this game. But it was a game that was such that you did not have to abandon the run. You could continue to run the football because it was not a game where somebody got some kind of lead on you to where you felt like you had to throw the ball an extraordinary amount of times. And I think when Le'Veon Moss went down with that high ankle sprain or whatever it was when he re-injured his ankle, Texas A&M run game was not the same. It was not the same. And I think that hurt them a lot because Miami did not abandon the run. They realized, listen, Carson Beck is not going to win this game for us. He does not have the skill set that's going to be able to win this game for us. We have to be able to run the game. And I think Miami in the trenches, they played really well on both sides of the ball. And that was probably the difference in it. Well, I ain't going to say probably. That was the difference in this game because they were able to establish the run and they were able to get after Texas A&M's run game and get after Marcel Reed. He was always having to throw off of a scrambling sort of platform. He wasn't able to really set his feet a whole lot until they did find a groove in the game where they was getting the ball out of his hands pretty quickly on some of those third downs. and he was making some plays with his arm, but not being able to establish that run game. And you got Bain and Mesidor coming after you. Plus, they was getting really good push up the middle too uh, in their rush game. So it was one of those games where you really needed to continue to run the football. That way, you could control the clock. You could get your defense a lot of rest. But you saw one team was able to do it, and the other team was not. So I think that was really the difference in the game because it was only a 10-3 game, and A&M had a chance to at least tie it or possibly go for two and win it at the end, but they weren't able to do so. Old Texas Tech man 9144 says if Miami's defense plays like they did yesterday, I see a upset Miami over Ohio State. I'm saying the same thing. I don't know if it's going. I'm saying if they play that good defense like they played yesterday, they have a really good chance of being in this game against Ohio State. Because I think what we realized about this Ohio State team is if you can get pressure on Julian Sain, he is not the same quarterback. Yes, he has 79% completion rate this season, but games that we saw where teams were able to get him flustered with pressure, he is not the same quarterback. Now, if you don't get no pressure on him and you just let him sit back there and throw, yeah, he's going to complete 80% of his passes. But I think Miami, well, Indiana showed everybody. If you get pressure on this guy, you can disrupt their offense. And Miami got two guys who can get after the quarterback organically without having to send a lot of blitzes. So that Ohio State offensive line, their two tackles are going to have their hands full. One of them going to probably have a tight end helping them, either on Bain or on Mesidor. And if I was to pick one of them, you want to pick that tight end over there by Bain because Mesidor is not quite the pass rusher, in my opinion, or as talented as Bain is. But we'll have to wait and see how Ohio State decides to do that. But I agree with you, old Texas Tech man, 9144. If Miami play that kind of defense, they can really create some issues for Ohio State because Julian Sain is not the same quarterback when you no quarterback is the same when they get pressure on them. And I think that they have a really good chance of winning that game if they can get pressure on Julian Sain. Let me see what our next question. Our man Level Up Sports 10, my man Mossberg said, do you feel like A&M put the ball in Marcel Reed's hands too much? I definitely believe that they put the ball in his hands too much. It was a really, really close football game. And I think that they abandoned the run maybe a little bit too much. And we've already seen all season that Marcel Reed can be turnover prone. He's going to get a ball to the other team. And I think on our earlier show on Thursday, we talked about that. We talked about both of these quarterbacks, Carson Beck and Marcel Reed. The key to both of those teams winning would have to be which one of them could take care of the football. Miami's coaches realized, listen, early in the game they realized it. Carson Beck is not going to be able to win this game for us. They realized that. They knew they had to run the football, and they did just that. Texas A&M, on the other hand, really put the ball in Marcel Reed's hands to win it, especially when Le'Veon Moss went down. They really abandoned the run, in my opinion, even though the score was close. They had some opportunities in this game. Marcel Reed, of course, the last drive they had, he threw an interception in the end zone. He was late on that throw. If he throws that ball on time, his tight end, number 17, has a chance to catch that ball and get him a chance to tie this game up or even go for two and win it. Now, do I think they would have went for two? No. It would have been smart to go ahead and get the extra point Even though that win was crazy and they missed a few close ones, and a couple of them got blocked, I think that they would have had a chance to at least be in this game if they wouldn't have abandoned the run. But you got to give Miami all the credit because they were able to stop the run and they were able to get some pressure on Marcel Reed organically. He threw a lot of good balls, but Miami was really physical in this game, and I think they out physical Texas A&M too, in my opinion. And I hated to see Texas A&M go down because I thought this was a game Texas A&M could win. Um, in a close victory, I thought both of these teams was pretty evenly matched up as well, just like that Oklahoma and Alabama game. But we saw who pulled out that victory um, yesterday. It goes to Miami. They won 10-3 in a very very close one, and it probably could have been worse than that. Their field goal kicker missed what, three field goals, all makeable if the win isn't what it is in that game. Let me see if we got any other questions in here. My man Parlay Poe of the Blicksburg podcast wants to know, how do you see Miami matching up with Ohio State? Much like the question that my man, old Texas Tech man 9144 said. I think that Miami, the thing with Miami that sort of is giving me some concern is I don't know if they got any wide receivers that can help Carson Beck out in this game. That's where my issue comes in with this Miami team. Yes, they got the dynamic freshman. They do. He's dynamic. Can Carson Beck and can this team find a way against this Ohio State defense that has some really good players? Can they get the ball into some of those wide receivers' hands to make some plays? He has to get time to throw the football. They got some really good pass rushers for that Ohio State team. The thing that I like about Miami, though, is they can run the football on this Ohio State team. A lot of people look at the offense, the defense that Ohio State has and thinks that they don't have no weaknesses. They don't have no flaws. You can run the football on this Ohio State team. You saw Texas do it. You saw Michigan do it. You saw Indiana do it. Teams that you know are not going to abandon their schemes are able to run the football. Those other teams that did not run the ball well against Ohio State, it's because they probably abandoned it because they got behind so much they felt like they had to throw the football. I don't think this is going to be a Miami team that's going to allow Ohio State to jump out to a huge lead on them. They're going to be able to stop the run for one, and they're going to be able to get after the quarterback, to get after Julian Sane. So I think their defense is going to allow them to be able to be in the game to the point where they don't have to abandon the run. I think it's a really good matchup. I don't know if Miami, like I said, has the wide receivers to compete with some of these Ohio State defensive backs, but they're going to really need Carson Beck in this game because if Ohio State makes you one-dimensional to where all you can do is try to run the football, they're going to try to take that away and then cover your wide receivers if those guys cannot make some plays for Carson Beck. That's going to probably be the biggest issue for Miami is their wide receivers. They got to be able to make some plays in this game so that they can still establish the run. They can't go like they did against Texas A&M with no passing game and still be able to win a game like that. Because Ohio State is not going to allow you to win and you only score 10 points. That's for sure. That's for sure. Let's talk about our game that was at the middle of the day yesterday. We had the Ole Miss team going up against Tulane, which we already seen earlier in the season where Tulane beat them 45-10. We also knew that was going to probably be the case this time. And Ole Miss came out 3 plays, touchdown, 4 plays, touchdown, and they jumped out to a 14-0 lead pretty easily. and they really just coasted this game. Their coach. Uh, I don't know if he's going to be their coach permanently. I think they did give him the job, Golden. I think they did give him that job. So he was able to have his team clicking on all cylinders. Now, of course, they got a much tougher matchup um, coming up when they got to go up against Georgia, which is another rematch again. Um, but I think they were able to score on Georgia early in the season. Will they be able to do that again? I'm not quite sure because this Georgia team is playing really, really good. But it was not an interesting game at all. It was kind of hard to watch because you really couldn't see Tulane do a whole lot. Not like you were able to see James Madison score some points up against Oregon, but of course that was probably against second and third string teams. But I really liked that James Madison team. They were a lot grittier than I thought they would be. But in terms of the Ole Miss and Tulane game, there really wasn't a whole lot to that game. I think the final score was what, maybe 41-3, something like that. I don't even remember the final score. That's how lopsided. Maybe it was 41-10. I think Tulane might have ended up getting a touchdown late in that game, so maybe it was 41-10 or 44-10, something like that. But it wasn't close. It wasn't even a good matchup to even watch, which I hope that the whoever determines the criteria for this freaking college football playoffs, they go ahead and decide, listen, we can leave the group of five, group of six, whatever you want to call it. We need to go ahead and leave them out. Now, I would really love to see Tulane and James Madison play for the group of five, group of six national championship. I think that would be a really good game. And the way I seen James Madison play yesterday, they got a lot of fighting now. I think they will probably beat Tulane. Now, I could be wrong because Tulane does have some talent on that team, and they might be a little bit better, but they play really, really well. And I like that quarterback for James Madison. Texas Tech man, 91-44. Oregon hasn't gone against a defense like Texas Tech has fifth ranked total defense, third ranked scoring defense, first ranked run defense, plus look how young Oregon is and experienced that Texas Tech is. Listen, I 1000% agree with you. Oregon is not going to see, now they played against a really good Indiana team and they lost at home. They're going to see something very, very similar when they match up against Texas Tech. I know how they put it on James Madison yesterday. This is not the same caliber team that this Oregon team is about to face. They're getting ready to face a team that has a lot of talent who can get after the quarterback, the guys who can play some really solid football. My concern about Texas Tech is can they slow down this quarterback for these Oregon Ducks? Because right now he is playing on a really high level. He's playing very, very confidently. They have been able to work guys in at the wide receiver position after losing to Corey and Moore and Evan Stewart. They've been able to work some guys in. They got some talent on that team that, man, they just might be able to give Texas Tech a really, really good. I mean, yeah, Texas Tech a really good game. I think they play on the 31st. I'm looking forward to that game because I think that's going to be a really, really good matchup. And yeah, Doug, I really respect James Madison, man. They played hard, they played gritty. Even though they were getting beat pretty handily early in that game, they were able to drive the football down the field all game against Oregon. It wasn't like Oregon had them three and out punting like crazy. They were able to move the football in Oregon, which is why I'm concerned about them playing against Texas Tech, because Texas Tech can move the ball on them. But the thing is, Texas Tech gonna be able to score points early and often. So I'm telling you right now, I think Oregon should be very, very concerned about this game against Texas Tech because Texas Tech is going to be able to play good, solid defense, get after the quarterback. They're going to be able to run the ball and they're going to be able to throw the ball. And I think they're much more talented than anybody Oregon has played so far outside of Indiana. And I think that could be the difference in the game for Texas Tech. The fact that they got such an experienced team. So I'm anxious to see that game as well. I'm really looking forward to that matchup between Oregon and Texas Tech. I'm also looking forward to the Georgia and Ole Miss game. I want to see if Georgia's defense has really turned the corner the way it looks like they've turned the corner to where they can really slow down Chambliss and that offense. Now I'm hearing that the running back for Ole Miss went out with an injury. I don't know if he's going to make it back in time for this game. I don't know the extent of that injury, but I'm going to be watching that very closely to see if Lacey makes it back from the injury because I believe he went out in that game on Saturday. Yeah, I agree with you, old Texas Tech man, 91-44. David Bailey, number one sack leader. Romeo Heights, Ben Roberts, Jacob Rodriguez. Listen, all those guys, man, all those guys are going to make it tough on Oregon. I know they are, and I know they're going to become, they're going to come well prepared. I'm a huge Joey McGuire fan. Joey McGuire is a really good football coach. I mean, a really good football coach. And I think there was a time when Texas probably should have tried to get him on their staff, especially during that Tom Herman era. They probably should have found a way to get Joey McGuire on that staff. Because I know when Texas played them the first year Steve Sarkisian was there, Texas just was not a physical team. And he knew eventually if they kept punching Texas in the mouth, that Texas would give in. And that team that year, they ended up beating that Texas team uh, in overtime when Bijan Robinson, I think, ended up fumbling in overtime. They ended up beating Texas, and they went forward on fourth down maybe 5 or 6 times in that game with that quarterback they had at the time who played lights out against Texas in that game. So I think that they got a really good matchup ahead of them. Oregon, that is, against that Texas Tech team. They're gonna bring everything they got, and I think when we do our preview of that game, I'm leaning towards Texas Tech to win that game, simply because I think that those guys are have more defensively that can slow down Oregon's offense. They're going to make it very hard on Oregon's quarterback. That's a fact. That's a fact. That is truly a fact. Especially because they can stop the run too. So when you can stop the run, you can really make it difficult on a quarterback when he can't use the kind of plays you want to use because you got a running game like play action pass or the run pass option, those kind of things. So I think Texas Tech is definitely going to make it difficult on Oregon when they match up. And then the other matchup, of course, we talked about a little bit earlier is Ole Miss and Georgia. And like I said, I really want to see if Georgia's defense has really turned the corner the way they played against Texas, the way they played against Alabama in the championship game. Have they really turned the corner to where they're not going to give up 5 straight scoring drives to an Ole Miss team again when they match up? And I think they're playing really good football right now. Um, and they're not putting a whole lot on Gunnar Stockton's shoulders. They're allowing Gunnar Stockton to just manage the game. They're going to run the football. They're not going to abandon the football. And they're going to throw the ball to their tight ends. And they're going to get it to Zachariah Branch on catch and run situations and they're going to make some things happen. They got another good wide receiver on the outside too. I think his name is, I think his number's number 18, something like that. I don't know, but anyway, they got some decent receivers on that Georgia team, and we know they got a two-headed monster at the running back position. So I'm anxious to see all four of these games when they're played. I think they all are going to be played on the 31st, maybe one on the 30, two on the 31st, and two on the first. I got to go check the schedule, but I'm looking forward to seeing all of those. Oh, they basketball team, they beat Duke 82-81, or they playing right now. I'm telling you right now, nobody wants to go in Lubbock and play in that arena, man. I'm telling you right now, their fans at the football stadium and in the basketball arena, their fans are nuts, man. And I know every time Texas was going there, it was a nightmare for Texas because their fans really, really give it to you in that arena. So I could definitely see, and they're scrappy. They're well coached, and they're a really, really scrappy team, that Texas Tech team. So I can definitely see them beating Duke. And it looks like they did beat them 82-81 last night in Madison Square Garden. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna have to call. I got a friend who's a huge Duke fan. I'm going. She ain't mentioned that. She normally would talk about Duke in our chat, but she ain't said nothing about Duke. So, Melissa Graham, I'm about to text you right now and say what happened to Duke last night, 82-81 to Texas Tech. I'm quite sure she's gonna give me a really good excuse too. Really, really good excuse. But good win for the Texas Tech men's basketball team last night over Duke 82-81. Well, I just want to jump on real quick and do that and just talk about those games that took place this weekend. If anybody got any other questions in the chat, you can put those in there real quick. But if not, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah, I'm gonna give her a hard time. I'm definitely gonna give her a hard time because whenever my teams lose, she give me a really hard time. Always throwing the horns down and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely about to give her a hard time soon as I get off this stream. But if we have nothing else, we'll go ahead and end this show, and I'll probably be back at some point tomorrow. Um, I'm off work for 2 weeks because of winter break. School is out, so as a school teacher, we're off on break. So I'll probably try to do something every day this week, just to jump on and make some content and give something for the people to talk about or to watch. So yeah, I'll definitely give an update when I'm going to do that. So hopefully you'll be around, Old Texas Tech Man 9144. If you ever want to join the show, you can hit me up on WTP Sports Dudes at gmail.com, and then I can also send you the link, and you can come on the show with us and chop it up with us like you do in the chat, but only you be live on screen. So let me know if you ever want to get on, and that email address is WTP Sports Dudes at gmail.com. All right, y'all. Y'all have a good rest of y'all's day. Enjoy this NFL action or whatever else you got going on with your family. But we out. Peace.